Hey everybody, Rob here at etrailer.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Curt Class 3 Custom Fit Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2019 GMC Acadia. Now here's what our hitch is going to look like once we have it installed. It's going to be pretty well hidden, but it is going to stick down right below the bumper, but it sits back pretty far, so it's really not that noticeable. But the main thing we are going to see right below the bumper is that receiver tube sticking out. Now it is a Class 3 hitch, so it's going to give us a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, and it's going to have the widest variety of accessories that we can mount up. Whether we need to tow a trailer, we could put a ball mount in there, easily tow a trailer, or maybe we just want to hit the trails with our bikes with some friends. We could put a bike rack in there. Maybe we need to take a road trip, save some room on the inside. We could put a cargo carrier back here and move all that gear to the outside of the Acadia. But regardless of how we're going to be using the hitch, all of our accessories are going to mount through the hitch pin hole on the side. Now the hitch is going to accept a standard 5/8 pin and clip. Now these are not going to be included with the hitch, but you can find them here at etrailer.com, along with some locking devices to make sure your accessories are secure, and anti-rattle devices to cut down on that annoying rattling sound when we're driving down the road. Now our safety chain connection points are going to be a plate style, welded to the bottom of the receiver tube and the cross tube here, and you can see they're kind of slightly offset from the hitch pin hole, which means it's going to give us a lot more clearance, and we shouldn't have to worry about too much interference when we hook up our chains. And you see, even with some of the normal or smaller size hooks, we have plenty of room to get them hooked on or take them off. And even with some of the really larger ones, we still have room to get those engaged and not really have to worry about any difficulty getting them off. Now whether you're going to be using your hitch for towing or for more of a recreational purpose like a bike rack, you still want to be sure that it's going to be up to the task that we put it to. So as far as the weight rating goes, our hitch is going to have a 750-pound tongue weight. That's going to be the maximum downward force at the end of the receiver tube. Now to put that in perspective, that's quite a bit amount of weight for our hitch, so we're really going to be able to maximize the carrying capacity if we are using a cargo carrier. Even those really large ones, we're going to be able to maximize the weight capacity of those, or be able to carry even up to 5, maybe even 6 bikes on a bike rack. Now it's also going to have a 5,000-pound gross trailer weight rating. That's how much it can pull, but that does include the trailer and everything we have loaded on it. Now our hitch is compatible and designed to work with weight distribution systems as well, and that's going to be a separate component that you have mounted on your trailer. Now the tongue weight's going to stay the same at that 750 pounds, but the gross trailer weight rating is going to bump up to 6,000 pounds. With all those numbers in mind, you do want to double check your Acadia's owner's manual, because those are going to be the ratings for our hitch, and we don't want to exceed the ratings for our car. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the outermost edge of the bumper is going to be about 6 inches. That measurement's going to help you whenever you're looking at folding accessories to make sure you can put them in the upright stored position without them coming in contact with the rear bumper. And from the ground to the inside top edge of the receiver tube opening is right about 16 inches. Now that measurement is going to help you whenever you're looking for a ball mount so you can find the appropriate rise or drop to match up to your trailer. But now that we've seen what our hitch looks like and gone over some of the features, let's go through the installation together. To begin our installation, we want to come to the back of our Acadia. Now before we get anything in place, we are going to have to lower the exhaust down, but before we lower it, I'm going to put up a support strap because I don't want to cause any damage. So I'm going to at least come to where it Y's off right here up at the rear axle. Find a solid spot on the frame or anywhere on the vehicle. I'm going to tighten up the strap. That way once we do lower it, it won't come down too quickly and cause any damage. But if we move to the very back by the exhaust tip, we'll find an exhaust hanger on each side, right by the mufflers. Now the hanger is going to be bolted to the back of the frame here, and it's actually going to be a lot easier just to unbolt it than try to slide it off the muffler itself. So we can grab a 15mm socket. We're going to pull both of those bolts out right at the back. And once we have the bolts loose, the exhaust isn't just going to fall. We kind of have to lift up a little bit on that hanger, and there's a little rod right there that's stuck on, so we need to lift it up and kind of move this hanger off so that it can come down. And we'll just let that hanger rest on the tailpipe there, and we'll do the same thing over on the other side. With both hangers loose at the back here, you can see we really didn't gain as much room as we need. So we're going to follow the exhaust, continuing to go towards the front of our vehicle And right before we get to the fuel tank here in front of the rear axle, we're going to have another rubber isolator holding the exhaust up. Now you do, again, want to make sure you have that strap up to hold the exhaust, but we're going to go ahead and take this hanger off so we get a little bit more slack in the system. So we're going to spray some spray lubricant, make it a lot easier to get that rubber isolator off. Then we can just grab a pry bar. I'll use the exhaust pipe itself to kind of pry against and slide that rubber isolator off. Then we can just very slowly loosen that strap up so we can let the exhaust come down. We have plenty of room above the muffler to be working with. Now above each muffler we're going to have this heat shield. We need to pull that down so we can do some trimming. Now what's holding it in place is these little speed nuts. They're not really like a nut per se, so we don't need a wrench or anything, but we should be able to take them off using a pair of pliers. Just grab a pair of needle nose, kind of put them in the little indentations in there. Should be able to get it started just by turning it counterclockwise. We're just going to want to work these loose and take them all off so we can get the entire heat shield down. Should be 4 of these on each heat shield. Now these speed nuts can be a little bit of a pain just because they're not that easy to grab onto. But again, you take those needle nose pliers, try to get it in the holes on those indentations. Just grip it a little bit firmly. We should be able to rotate the pliers to break it loose. And once it gets loosened enough, we should just be able to grab it by hand and spin them off. Now again, we're going to have 4 of these on each heat shield, so we want to pull all of them out and pull both heat shields down. And once you have both heat shields out, you want to make sure you hold on to those speed nuts, and we're going to be doing some trimming on the heat shield so we can get our hitch in place. And really the area we want to trim is going to be right where the frame rail is. You just want to make sure you keep the attachment point that's towards the back. We're going to cut real close to it. We'll come up, and then we are going to trim off the forward attachment point as we going towards the front of the vehicle. But you'll end up with a rectangle where this area in the middle will be cut out. You should still have plenty of room to get all those other attachment points back in there. Now I'm going to use a pair of aviation shears to cut my heat shield. It's pretty thin metal, but you do want to take your time, and as you're cutting it, just be mindful you don't want to reach too far, catch a sharp edge, and cut your finger. But both heat shields will need to be trimmed, and it's going to be the same way, it's just going to be a mirror image. So the other one, we're going to cut that center section out as well. And once we have our heat shields trimmed, we want to go ahead and put them back in place. So we're going to loosely get everything lined back up. Make sure that the areas we trimmed are going to be open. So we want to make sure that this area along the bottom of the frame rail is open, and that we can still get our heat shield back in at least 3 of those mounting locations. So we'll just take those speed nuts. We can just real loosely start them by hand and just turn them on there counterclockwise so they grab onto that stud and hold the heat shield in place. Once we get one, we can start going through, working on getting all the rest of them back in and the heat shield on the other side. Now right where we cut that section of heat shield out, where we have our frame exposed now, you'll see on each side we're going to have this seam tape. Now this is sticking out from the bottom of the frame. We don't want it to interfere how our hitch sits against the car. So we want to scrape all this excess tape off, or that sealant. Easiest way I found is if you take a putty knife, you can just kind of slowly work back and forth and start scraping it off till we can get it nice and smooth against the bottom of the frame. So again, just kind of take your time, clean off all the excess tape, and we can move to the other side and do the exact same thing. Now on the bottom of the frame here, you'll notice that we have 4 holes. Now the three smaller ones that are going to be slightly offset to the inside of the frame rail, those are going to be our mounting locations. But this large one is going to be our access hole to get the hardware into place. So we'll go ahead and start with the furthest one forward, right by our access hole. We want to grab a pull wire from our kit. It's going to have a coiled end on it. I like to just put a slight bend in it, and I'm going to feed the coiled end in through this mounting hole, and then I want to have it come down right through the access hole. Now it's important that you leave both ends of the wire sticking out of the frame so we don't lose it inside. Then we'll take one of our square hole spacer blocks, I'm going to slide it over the wire, push it up into the frame, still leaving that coiled end out. Then I'll take a carriage bolt, thread it onto the end of the wire. We'll push that piece into the frame, and then we're going to pull down on our wire until the bolt comes through that block and out the mounting hole. Now we're going to repeat that for our other two mounting holes, the one next to that and then the one at the very back of the frame, and then we'll move to the other side and do the exact same thing. At this point, I suggest getting an extra set of hands to help you lift the hitch up. We're going to feed all of our pull wires coming from the top going down to the corresponding holes in the side plates. And once we get them all put through, we'll lift the hitch up so that the bolts will come down through the holes in the side plates. Now once we got our hitch up, we did realize we couldn't get it all the way against the bottom of the frame. That's because of the stud at the very back here. So we're going to go ahead and remove that speed nut. And grab a pair of channel locks, a pair of pliers. And I'm going to grab the stud and I'm just going to break it off because our hitch is actually going to go against here and it'll sandwich the heat shield in place. You're going to want to do that for the other side as well so we can get our hitch nice and tight against the bottom of the frame. And when you're putting your hitch up, you want to make sure you get at least one nut on each side, hand tight, because all of our mounting locations are just going to get one of these flange nuts. So we'll just pull our pull wire off. Then we can just loosely start our flange nut on the carriage bolt. You just want to be extremely careful not to push that bolt into the frame. Let's go through, get a couple threads on there, make sure it's catching. And we'll do that for the rest of the remaining hardware. You want to make sure you come back with an 11/16 socket, and we're going to snug up all of our hardware. You want to make sure you come back with a torque wrench. We're going to torque all the hardware down to the specified amount in the instructions. Just want to go back and repeat that for any remaining hardware you have. So at this point, our hitch is torqued down, so I'm going to just lift my exhaust up a little bit, making sure those hangers go around the fascia, get to the inside. Then I'll tighten up the strap. We'll just start hooking all of our hangers back in place, starting with the one furthest forward. We'll make it a little easier if we spray a little more spray lubricant on there. Just helps slide it back on. You just want to lift up the hanger just enough to where you can get it back onto that rubber isolator. And with our mufflers, we do have to lift up our exhaust hanger, kind of bend it outwards so we can get that hole to line up with that tab. Then it should hold itself in place and be close enough to where we can just get those bolts to thread back in by hand, make sure they're not cross-threading. And once you have your exhaust put back in place, we can remove the support strap from earlier, and that'll finish up your installation and your look at the Curt Class 3 custom fit trailer hitch receiver on our 2019 GMC Acadia.